Okay, so in the first video, we've squared everything up below the hip. We've also put in our front and back crotch curve, and we've worked on the crotch length to fit back to our client. Now for this video, we're going to work on developing the legs and getting in our grain lines. Let's review your draft so far. Here we have the front crotch curve, and then we have the back crotch curve, and this totals your client's crotch length. And then we came down the side seam to the crotch depth. We have the hip level, the hip width. Here's center front from the waist to the ankle, the side seam, as well as center back from the waist all the way to the ankle. And then this is the front half of your pants, and this is the back half. Now, as you recall, everything below the crotch level is all nice and squared up and ready for you to make your legs. Everything above the crotch level is going to be where there's lots of curved lines and darts, and this is where it's going to fit custom into your client's waist. So here we can see center front with the front crotch curve compared to a pair of pants. Here's the waistline. And then below the crotch curve, you have your knee and your ankle for the legs. Also, at center back, we curved it in a little bit so it'll scoop into her lower back and extend it out the crotch curve. And then if you notice here, the crotch curve of the back is longer than the crotch curve of the front, and this is correct. Double check everything on your draft to make sure that this is true for you before we start to add our grain lines. Everything at this stage is completely dependent that you've done your measurements correctly and it's all squared up and balanced. Now what we're going to do is we're going to establish our front grain line and our back grain line, and we're going to build our legs based on those two locations. Take a minute to sharpen your pencil and then go in and erase any extra notes or math that you put on your paper. And then also get out your red and blue color pencils and take a moment to make a 1-inch strip of paper, and then we'll get started on the grain lines. We're going to start by finding the grain line for the front of your pants. Using a piece of paper, we're going to measure starting from the side seam all the way out to the front crotch width. This is the very end of the crotch curve. Make sure you're getting the newest crotch measurement and you're ignoring the old one if you had made an adjustment. So go ahead and fold your paper in half. And this is from the side seam all the way to the front crotch length. And we're going to label this half of front. Now using this measurement, we're going to go from the front crotch length and come out halfway into the front of the pant leg. We'll mark that in pencil and circle it. For establishing the back grain line, we're going to use the same half of front measurement. And we're going to start here at the side seam and crotch level, and we're going to measure going towards center back. Now remember, this time we're using the half of front measurement, and we're still lining this up along the crotch level line. So lightly get your mark. And then what we're going to do is we're going to measure 1/2 inch towards center back and mark this in blue. Again, this is half of the front plus 1/2 inch towards center back. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to square out our grain lines for the pant draft. If you haven't already, go ahead and come back here to the center front and label this CF. Using a new piece of paper, let's measure from that new grain line mark back to center front. Mark the center front in red on your paper. And then we can bring the paper down along center front so we can go out onto the knee level and mark your draft with a red dot. and do the same thing again down here at the ankle. This will help it so you're very accurate on aligning a perfect 90-degree angle to your crotch level to make sure that this grain line is totally straight up and down in the front of your pants. For now, all we need in this grain line is just connecting from the crotch level down to your ankles. For the back of your pants, we're going to do basically the same thing. So take out a fresh new piece of paper and measure from center back to that new grain line dot and mark this on your paper. Then we're going to use our paper to measure from center back along the knee to get this new grain line dot, and the same thing again at the ankle. Now using those 3 new blue dots on our pant draft, we're able to square out our grain line from the crotch level all the way down to the ankle. Be sure to draw this in lightly because the back grain line might get moved just a little bit later on in our draft. If you fold your paper in half and line up center front and center back, you're going to notice that the grains do not stack on top of each other, but they are parallel to each other. This is correct. Rotate your paper so we can come down here to the ankle area, and also go ahead and fold it in half so it's easier to move around. At this stage, we're going to take the center back and center front from the ankle to the knee level, and we're going to erase them. You have to be sure, though, that you do not erase your new grain lines. So now, from the knee level down, all we have is one side seam and the front and back grain line. Rotate your paper towards you so we can label along the grain line for the front and for the back. Okay, so tear off some more paper about 1 inch wide, and then we're going to trim this to be 14 inches long. No matter what size your pant draft is for, we're all going to do the same size ankle circumference. If you're following along the draft for plus sizes, you will be doing 16 inches. Go ahead and prepare this piece of paper now. So go ahead and fold this perfectly in half, and what we're going to do is in red, let's label one side front, and then in blue, label the other side back. On that center crease, go ahead and mark it in pencil so we know the distance between the front and the back. So here we have the front, the back, the halfway point, and it totals 14 inches long. Starting with the front ankle circumference, what we want to do is we want to align this with the grain. So go ahead and fold this in half, and then where we have our crease, we can mark that in red, and then we can align this with the grain. Now we can go ahead and mark both sides of the front ankle onto your pant draft at the ankle level. If you measure this, it should total 7 inches. The center of it will be 3.5. And then do the same thing for the back. Again, we're going to fold it in half, mark the crease in blue, then we can align this with the grain, and then on your ankle of your draft, go ahead and get both sides. And then once we come back in and measure it, this should total 7 inches, and the middle of it will be 3.5. Now here, I just wanted to remind you that the back crotch width is larger than the front crotch width. So the front is smaller, the back is larger. In order to make sure that your pant legs are balanced, the front ankle should be 1/2 of an inch smaller and the back ankle should be 1/2 of an inch larger. So what we're going to do is on the front ankle, we want to minus 1/4 inch on both sides of the ankle. Make your new dots using red color pencil, and now the total should be 6.5 for the front ankle. Now let's move to the back with our blue color pencil, and looking at the ankle closest to the side seam, let's go ahead and add 1/4 inch. So this is moving away from the grain line. Do the same thing on the other side, and the new total here will be 7.5 inches. As a beginner, I just wanted you to see for the first time how we came to these numbers, but now that you know, you can always skip right to 6.5 for the front, 7.5 for the back, and it totals 14 inches. Take out a new piece of the scrap paper, and what we're going to do is we're going to check the balance between our ankles back to the side seam. So from the side seam, go ahead and come over and mark your newest ankle mark onto the paper in blue, and then turn your paper around and we can compare it to the side seam going to the newest front ankle mark and mark that in red on your paper. For some of you, the red and blue would have ended up right on top of each other, and this is great. You're fine. But for me, it was a little bit off. So for instance, my red is a little bit shorter and my blue is a little bit longer. Let's take a look at the actual measurements. For instance, my front is measuring 2.5 inches from the side seam to the front ankle. And then when I compare this 2.5 inches to the back, I'm seeing that mine is coming up 1/4 of an inch different. But if the distances between yours were equal, then you're okay. You don't need to make any changes. Go ahead and check yours now to see what your results are. For mine, what I need to do, I need to take the whole ankle and the grain line and shift it 1/4 of an inch towards the side seams. The solution for you might be a slightly different measurement, but the key thing is you're moving the back grain line plus the ankle dots. So it might be towards the side seam or away from the side seam, as long as the measurement that you're fixing is 1/2 inch or less. If you need to make a correction more than 1/2 inch, then you made a mistake somewhere on your crotch widths or when you were placing the grain lines. Quickly here you can see the corrections that I had to do to mine. So I'm moving the ankle dots and I'm moving the grain line, all three of these, 1/4 of an inch towards the side seam. Then I need to go and fix the grain line up above the knee and all the way to the crotch level. So I can come back and redraw this in and then erase the previous grain line. So just to repeat, I moved my back grain line and my ankle dots 1/4 of an inch towards the side seam. I also need to come back here and relabel the back grain line. Now when I come back and I double check, so my front was 2.5 inches and now the back matches at 2.5 inches. Your measurement might be different, but just make sure your results are equal on both sides. Go ahead and take a minute to double check your front ankle. So it's 6.5 long and the midway point is 3.25. And then moving to the back, it should be 7.5 inches long and the midway point is 3.75. 3.75. And the front was 3.25. Now that the back ankles have been corrected, I want to come in here and make them darker with the blue color pencil. And you'll notice here that the old blue color pencil is difficult to erase, so you can always use whiteout to cover that up. And then draw your ankle line in one last time so it's continuous all the way through. So far we've made a side seam to divide your front and back pants. But what we need to do now is we need to draw a side seam for each leg. So come out to the side seam at crotch level and let's circle that. Then from the crotch level side seam, we're going to connect back to the ankle of the front that's closest to the side seam. Draw this line in lightly. Now for the back, come out to the grain line at the ankle and move over to the side seam ankle, and you're going to connect that all the way back to the side seam at crotch level. Let's label this front side seam below the line, and then come over to the back and label this back side seam above the line. In blue and red, I have the new side seams you just drew. But right here, there's the old side seam, which is a straight line. We want to erase this, going from the ankle all the way up to the crotch level. In between the ankle and the crotch, come down to the knee level. Along this knee level, come out to the front leg side seam. We're going to make that red and circle it. Come back to the grain line, and above the knee level, let's label this grain line. Staying at the knee level, measure from the front side seam to the grain line.
4 3/4.
Minus 4 3/4. And then I'm going to take this measurement and go from the grain line towards center front and beyond center front. So again, we had the front side seam to the grain line, and then the grain line, which out to what will now be the front inseam. Go ahead and mark this in red and circle it. There's an older circle at the knee level and center front. I want to erase this so I do not confuse it with my new circle, which is my knee level and the new inseam. Now we can connect the new inseam red dot to the red dot down at the ankle. Connect this using a straight line. And then move your ruler up so we can continue drawing this straight line several inches above the knee. Now we're going to want to check our balance. So take the knee level inseam red dot and connect it to the knee level side seam red dot. Then connect those two dots together as well as down at the ankle and fold the paper. Now we can make sure that the side seam and inseam are both straight lines, and they're also right on top of each other, as well as the ankles and the knees. So the leg from the ankle up to the knee is totally symmetrical. Make sure on yours that it is balanced at the knee level as well as at the ankle level. Following the knee level, come on over to the back grain line and let's label it. Take out your blue color pencil, and for the back, we're basically going to do the same thing that we just did on the front. At the knee level and the new back leg side seam, make a blue dot. And then we're going to measure from the side seam along the knee level to the grain line, and then repeat this measurement all the way out beyond center back, and this will become our new inseam. Double check that it's the exact same measurement on both sides of the grain line. Make the new back inseam dot in blue and circle it in pencil. From the back grain line, come out to the back inseam, and down at the ankle, come out to the ankle inseam. And we're going to connect these with a straight line. And then be sure to continue the same straight line a few inches above the knee. And I want to come in here and label the back inseam. Write this below the line. We already have our back side seam and front side seam labeled. And let's go ahead and label the front inseam as well. Be sure to write this above the line. Now fold your paper in half along the back grain line, and you should be able to line up the 2 blue dots from the knee side seam and knee inseam, as well as the 2 blue dots down at the ankle. When we crease this paper, the crease should be right inside of the grain line, and all of the lines are stacked on top of each other. When we unfold this, double check that the fold is right on the grain line, and it's an even measurement on both sides at the knee and an even measurement at both sides of the ankle. Now our legs are complete below the knee level, and everything is symmetrical and balanced, and we're done erasing. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take some time and label these in a little more detail. So go ahead and fold your paper in half and come down to the ankle area. Starting with the back grain line, let's go ahead and add an arrowhead down to the ankle level, and also let's label this ankle level. And of course, let's do the same thing on the front. Add your arrowhead on the grain line at ankle level and right ankle level. And following up the grain line to the knee level, let's label this knee level, and we'll do the same thing on the back. Find the center back grain line at the knee level and label this knee level. Taking a look at our progress so far, we've already developed the back side seam and inseam, as well as the front side seam and inseam. So now on our draft, we've erased that old straight side seam, and you do not need it anymore from the crotch level down. As well, the center front and center back, we no longer need these below the knee level. Fold your paper in half and come over to the front crotch curve. When we look closely here, we can see there's 2 red dots. The newer one is the one that I've circled. The older one I can't erase, so I'm going to use a little whiteout to make it go away. I want to put some magic tape here on the back of the crotch curve at the crotch point. This way I'm able to poke through without damaging the paper. And again, this is right on that new crotch point. And then looking at the back crotch curve, I have this blue dot that I've circled, which is correct, and the old dot, which I cannot erase. I'm going to use a little whiteout and make this one go away. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the front crotch curve and put it on top of the back crotch curve, and I want to check the balance between the two. So fold your paper lengthwise and then open it up so we can see the front inseam, and make sure you're looking at the inseam. So from the ankle to the knee, we're going to match it up with the back inseam, ankle to knee. Once I have carefully stacked those together, I can crease the paper. Again, what we're trying to get is the 2 inseams are right on top of each other, from ankle to the knee. Now for our horizontal guidelines, we can make sure that the ankle is on top of each other, the knees are on top of each other, the hip level, and the crotch level. Now that I have my inseams all stacked together, what I want to do is locate that hole that I put in right at the front crotch level, and using a red marker, I'm going to go ahead and mark through the hole, transferring here to the back crotch level. Now when I take a look at the 2 different dots, they're in different locations. Ideally though, they should be right on top of each other. For all of us, our results might be a little bit different, but let's take a look at the solution I will do to fix mine. On a small piece of paper, I can make a red dot for the front and a blue dot for the back. And then I'll fold this in half to find out what is the difference between the two. Now you can see that I need to subtract this amount from the back and add this amount to the front. Ideally, they would have been stacked on top of each other, but in my instance, it's off by 3/8 and another 3/8. So 3/4 of an inch total. This is the maximum you can adjust without having to go back and fix your draft. So here I'm doing minus 3/8. So this is from the blue mark going towards center back. And then I'm going to draw it in pencil, circle it, clean up all the old marks, and let's move over to the front. Here on the front, I need to add 3/8. So this is moving away from center front. So I took away from the back, I'm adding to the front. Be sure to circle your new mark and then take the minute here and go and erase all of the old marks and clean up your crotch level line again. And then if you need to, come back in with the French curve and fix your crotch curve. Just as a reminder, you can do this adjustment for up to 3/4 of an inch total. If you need more than that, then there's a mistake somewhere in your draft. So go ahead and fold your paper lengthwise again and stack the inseams, and then come up to the crotch level to check the front and back, the new dots that we just put in here. So here I'm just making sure that the front dot and the back dot are exactly right on top of each other. Okay, so now that our crotch widths are balanced between the front and the back, we're ready to start drawing in the inseam, and this is going to go from above the knee level connecting to the front crotch point and the back crotch point. So now if you use a ruler, you're going to notice that you can't really connect it with a continuous straight line. This is going to be a curve. So the ruler that we're going to use is called the Variform Curve Ruler. Some people also call this a hip curve. Here's another variation of the hip curve ruler. And when I put these together, you'll see that they have the same curves in common. It's just a little bit different at the top. This clear hip curve ruler is easier to find in the fabric stores than the metal Variform curve. And there's another ruler here from the fabric stores where it's a combination of the French curve and the Variform curve, but it does not work at all. If you'll notice, there's a continuous curve on it, so there's no way to line this up starting with a straight line, and this ruler is not used in the fashion industry. So using your Variform curve or hip curve, have the straight edge down towards the ankle aligned with the straight edge heading towards the knee, and then slide your curve up to where you can line this up with the crotch width from the front. Now take a look where the red arrows are. I want to blend back into the straight line somewhere right around the knee level. I also want to notice the measurement on my ruler here at knee level. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flop my ruler over and make this measurement match at the knee level at the back. So now the back curve will mirror the front curve. So turn your paper around and making sure that that same measurement is at the knee level from the front, we're going to blend this to the back crotch width. And see where the two blue arrows are? This is where you want to blend back into a nice clean straight line. The last thing that we want to do now is check the balance of our inseam. So make sure your ankle is down by your left hand side. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold this paper in half and then make sure you're lining up your inseam from the knee level to the crotch level so you can double check that these curves are exactly the same from the front and the back.